Okay, so just looking at functions here quickly. So the graphs of 4 quadratic functions are shown below. So they're asking us which of the graphs does the function f of x equals x squared minus x minus 6 belong to. That's the question in there. Right, we're going to go one better than it this time. Just because I want us to be able to see how could we. We'll do that question first, but we're going to figure out a bit more about functions. Just kind of recapping on stuff we've already done, but just to make sure you haven't forgotten. So if we have f of x, we know that's y, so we know that that's just an equation. So if x squared minus x minus 6 is our equation, right, so how would we find its roots? So x squared minus x minus 0, it's quadratic equations. After telling us that we know quadratic equations, we can open up our brackets. What's our factors? Is 6, that will give us 1, so we know 3 and 2. The x squared makes the x go in twice. It's a minus 1. So if we have 3x inside, inside, outside, outside, how would we get a minus 1x? Well, the bigger number would have to be minus, so it's the 3 in this case. So x minus 3 and x plus 2 equals 0. So there are factors, so what would give us our roots that go through the actual equation. So like x minus 3 equals 0, so x would be equal to 3. X plus 2 equals 0, x equals minus 2. So it's really, really simple stuff. So which equation here goes through? X is 3 and x is minus 2. So we're going to look at the 4 graphs we have. So x is 3, so no, it doesn't go through this one. What about this one? X is 3, no. What about the C? X is 3, x is minus 2. It does go through this one. And what about this one here? It goes through x is 3 and x is minus 2. Okay, so we've 2 graphs that it doesn't go through and 2 graphs that it goes through. So straight away we've eliminated to C and D. What is the difference between graph C and graph D if we look at them? So this is all revision. This thing should be coming up into your head. Well, graph C is N shaped, so it means it's negative shaped. So if it's negative shaped, it's a minus x squared. Graph D is positive shaped, it's U shaped, so it's going to be a plus x squared. So looking at our equation, which equation? What is our equation? Is it positive or is it negative? Well, the x squared is positive, there's no negative there, so therefore our graph of x squared minus x minus 6 is positive, therefore it's graph D. So C is not the graph, so D is the equation for this. So that's really easy, and I hope you'd all be able to do that by looking at it. But we're going to go one step further, just in case they ask you something different. What if they give you these graphs and they say, write the equation of the following graphs, something like that. How are we going to go about it? Okay, so we'll just get our pen again. So write the equation of the following graph. So we start with graph A. What do we know about graph A? We know it's quadratic. We know that it's positive, so it's U-shaped. We know that its roots are x is equal to minus 3 and x is equal to 2. And I get this from just here where it cuts the x-axis. So what is x? X is equal to 2, x is equal to minus 3. That's where it's cutting the x-axis. Right, how could I make an equation from this? So it's like our working backwards again. So we're going to make our roots into factors. So x equals minus 3 is a root, so factor is going to be x plus 3. X equals 2, so that's going to become x minus 2. Just to show you how I got that, just say earlier on when we had x squared minus x minus 6, we opened up our brackets, we had x minus 3, x plus 2 equals 0. Then this was our factors, and it became a root because you said x minus 3 is equals 0, x equals 3. So like the 3 came across the equals. So like the sign always changed. So if we're working backwards, we now have x equals 3 as a root, so the factor is going to be x minus 3 in the bracket. Just in case you can't remember where that came from. Right, so it's a quadratic, we're going to let it equal 0. With 2 brackets on each other, what do we do when we have 2 brackets on each other? We split them, so we go x on x minus 2 plus 3 on x minus 2 equals 0. So x by x will be x squared minus 2x plus 3x minus 6 equals 0. X squared plus 1x or plus x minus 6 equals 0. There we've graph A. What about graph B? And I'll just do graph B and then we'll move on to some different. Right, graph B. So what's our roots? X equals minus 3 and x equals 2. Right, so again, what would our factors become? X plus 3, x minus 2 equals 0. So we have x on x minus 2 plus 3 on x minus 2 equals 0. X squared minus 2x plus 3x minus 6 equals 0. X squared plus x minus 6 equals 0. Right, why is that? Looking at graph B here, so why is that not exactly right? We know graph B is what shape? It's n-shaped. Therefore it's negative. Therefore we know that the x squared has to be negative. Okay, and in this case it's positive, so we have to change the sign of the x squared. If we change the sign of the x squared, you have to change everything in it. So minus x squared minus x plus 6 is equal to 0. And that's the equation of graph B. Graph C will also have a negative x squared, and graph D will have a positive x squared.